Hey guys, Nick Wheeler here again at Wheeler Custom Knives. So today we're going to be going over the finish grinding on the JoeP blades. Now, I said earlier in one of the videos that the heat treating is one of the most important elements of the knife build that you can't see. The finish grinding is part of some of the most important elements that you can see, but it also has a huge impact on the performance of the knife. Now keep in mind, we're going into this assuming that we pulled the most potential out of our steel as we could from doing a solid heat treatment on it. If the steel wasn't heat treated well, then anything after that is sort of for naught. So we're assuming that everything went well, and it's ready to turn it from a knife-like object into a cutting instrument. Now, there are a few things that are really important from an aesthetic point. Visually, we need symmetry, and we want consistency and just quality and overall finish. Now, some key points. This area right here is where the main bevels terminate, and that's referred to as the plunge cuts. Those need to be even. You'll see guys that know very little about knives go to a knife show, they'll pick a knife up, and that's still one of the first things they look at. And it is a testament to the maker's skill if they're dead nuts even. It doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the knife is worth a damn, but it means that they got control over the plunges, so that's important. We want all our tapers to be even. We want the tip to be centered exactly in the center line of this knife. We don't want it leaning over to one side. That's bad. These knives are all going to have a sharpened clip grind on them, and so even though that's a small narrow bevel, it needs to be smooth and consistent. It needs to terminate at the same point on either side of the spine. It needs to come out of the tip evenly, and that's all a sign of taking pride in your work and attention to detail if you can nail all that stuff. Then moving on to the performance aspect, you need to cater the cutting geometry, and what I mean by that is the shape of this bevel, the shape of this blade as it comes down and approaches an edge and a tip. You need to cater that for whatever knife you're making to its intended task. Now, if you're making a sharpened pry bar to go and hack through a bunch of cinder blocks with, and you don't want to damage the edge, you're going to leave that thick. But it's not going to be much of a slicing tool. If you're making like a skiving knife for leather, it can be very thin, stupid thin, ground really thin with almost no secondary bevel, and it's going to be a wicked slicing tool. A knife like this, we want to be right in the middle of all that, and so we want to flat grind. My approach, what Joe wanted to, we want to flat grind this thing down and even up all this stuff, make everything symmetrical and smooth. But even more importantly than that, in the big picture, is taking this edge down to the desired thickness consistently from here to here, and then we will feather that down with some convex geometry. So instead of just being flat where you could lay a straight edge on here and it would lay perfectly flat on the bevel, we're going to take this area as it approaches the edge and we're going to feather that down towards the edge. And what that's going to do, it's going to give us enough meat behind that cutting edge to have some strength to stand up to some abuse within reason, but it's going to let us take that edge down thin enough that we can make this thing scary sharp, and so it's going to be basically a big razor when it's done. And that's really, for me, some of the most important aspects of moving on to this next step, and it's very critical to the overall quality of the knife, and it's, I think, probably one of the hardest things to really get a firm grasp on as a knife maker. because you have a lot going on that you need to accomplish visually, but it's also very much a structural thing for performance. So with all that said, let's go fire up the grinder. Now we need to move on and clean up this sweeping curve that will go from the guard up to the raised clip. And I wanted to point out, it's really important that when you're doing a surface like this that you don't dwell in one spot, because when you're working on a round surface like this contact wheel, if we hesitate, if we pause in one area, it's just gonna essentially dig a rut. But you want to kind of ease into this and then just do a smooth, consistent pull against the contact wheel through this curve, and that's going to give us a nice smooth surface finish. It's fairly typical to see knives that have a curve like this where you can tell that the maker struggled with a divot or something in there because of not getting a consistent finish grind on that. And you can hand sand it out, but unless you're really diligent about the hand sanding, you're basically just going to hand sand over it, and it's going to be a nice shiny finish, but you're going to have dips and waves or even divots in there, and it's going to pick up light weird, and it's never going to look as good as it could if it was this finish ground right in the first place, so that you have a good foundation for your hand finishing. So we need to go ahead and fire this up.